In the last video, I made the point that nearly every question you might ask concerning an upcoming capital campaign, nearly every question can only be answered with accuracy once we have a prospect list. Thus, developing a prospect list is the first and most essential step to prepare for a capital campaign. To do that, you will need a coding system, a way to earmark prospective major gift donors in the database once you find them. To identify and rank prospective major gift prospects, whether they be individuals, businesses, or foundations, I find it helpful to use a code such as A2 or E3. The letter refers to potential gift amount and goes from A through H, with A representing a potential $1 million gift and H a prospective $5,000 gift. The number refers to relationship, which roughly translates into odds of getting a gift, and goes from 1 to 5, with 1 representing a very close relationship and 5 a relationship that is largely non-existent. We might call these prospects wild cards. How do we assign target codes? Well, for example, suppose I learned that Bill and Nancy Smith had been longtime donors to your ministry and typically gave several $1,000s each year to your annual fund. Further, suppose that Bill used to sit on your board of directors and we learned that he owns a private manufacturing company with 30 employees and $10 million in annual sales. From that little bit of information, I would assign a target code. So given that scenario, I would probably assign him the rating code of C2. The C represents a possible $250,000 gift, and the 2 represents a close relationship and a fondness for your ministry. The code is used in the campaign database, in the field typically labeled target, as in the Razor's Edge, or rating, as in some other software platforms. In some databases that have a target field, you'll see that target field pre-programmed with a number of codes, and those codes are sometimes dollar values like $1 million, $500,000, and so on and so forth. But instead of using the actual dollar amount as the code in the target field, I prefer a code as I described the letter and the number. I think that's much better, and I think it's better for 3 reasons. First, the use of a letter and number combination like A5 or C1 quickly tells the development staff where they need to spend their time. For example, I'd rather spend my time pursuing a C1 prospect, a relatively sure $250,000 prospect, rather than an A5, a $1 million long shot prospect. Conversely, I prefer to invest time in an A5, that same long shot $1 million prospect, rather than a relatively sure G1, a $10,000 prospect, because the payback from the $1 million prospect is so much more significant, right? Second, prospect lists are periodically shared at board or committee meetings, and confidential papers are sometimes not treated as such. Should a potential donor inadvertently see their name listed with a code, there's no harm. They don't know what the code means. It's kind of inside baseball to the development staff. Conversely, if a member of my board were to accidentally see their name with $1 million beside it in the target field, well, that might be a little bit awkward, to say the least. It'd be discomforting to the would-be donor and embarrassing to the development staff. So, thus, the use of the code. Using a target code rather than an actual dollar amount in the target field, it may be cumbersome at first until you memorize the coding system, but it's relatively easy to memorize the letter number combinations. Third, the code allows the computer to quickly sort out our best prospects based upon potential gift amount and likelihood of success. Most fundraising programs have a field expressly designed for a code such as this. As I mentioned, Blackbaud's Razor's Edge, which is the industry standard for development these days, they have a field labeled target on BioTab 2 precisely for this purpose. Finally, realize that the target code is a subjective summary judgment of, in some cases, reams of information. You know, think about all the stuff we have in our database. We've got giving history, we've got job titles, place of employment, we've got interactions between the organization and that donor that maybe go back 20 years. They sat on the board of directors, you know, they helped out at this or that event. All of that is taken into account when you assign a target code. So think of it this way. Think of assigning the target code as kind of a doctor's diagnoses, right? Your doctor may take blood pressure, temperature, and several other tests, and after reviewing all the objective data, what does he do? He comes up with a subjective judgment called a diagnosis, right? The target code is our diagnoses concerning capacity of this individual or this foundation or this business to make a big gift, right? It's our diagnosis of their capacity to make a gift and our relationship with them and between them and our ministry, our apostolate. Now, target codes can and do change over time as new information becomes available. Still, in my opinion, it is the single most important identifying field in any donor's record, because the target field represents your diagnosis. It represents your summary judgment of everything you know about that particular person, right? So this single field helps us as development professionals focus limited time and energy where the odds of payback are greatest. And that's the real power of spending time to do a good screening and rating process and getting those major gift prospects coded as best we can. A couple more minor points. First, the target code is not necessarily the actual asking amount. It just puts you in the right ballpark. You know, a lot can happen in a 30-minute meeting in somebody's office. You may have identified the person as a $250,000 prospect, but a variety of personal or business circumstances that arise in the casual conversation of the solicitation call will naturally impact the gift level that you eventually discuss. Finally, enormous time and energy, read money, goes into assigning target codes and building this prospect list. So do not erase the prospect list when the campaign is over. Please don't do that. It will have some validity for the next campaign, and in the meantime, it can be used in many ways to further the goals of your organization. For example, constituents with target codes are a great place to turn when creating a short list of candidates to fill vacancies on boards and committees. Let's review. The target code is a subjective judgment that summarizes objective data. From the thousands of constituents that may be in your database, the target code identifies those that we think might be capable of making a major gift. It identifies the potential size of their gift, along with the degree of friendship and relationship they have with your ministry. On a very practical basis, we know that development directors never have enough time, so the target code helps us distinguish big potential gifts from smaller ones. It helps us prioritize. And in database language, you can think of the target code as a grouping tool. We can query the target field for all those with codes, for example, from A1 through D5, if we want to see the top of the giving pyramid, or we could query anybody with a target code of A1 through H5 if we wanted to see the entire prospect list. So it's very helpful in that regard. In the next video, we describe how we make this diagnosis, how we assign target codes, how we use objective data to assign a subjective target code.